In today's video, I am going to be breaking down what you need to do more. Do you need to play more games, or do you need to play in more practices? This is a very important question because this is making headlines in the basketball community. And what really is the best thing for you? Well, I'm going to be giving you my advice, my recommendations, but also I'm going to be giving you a story about David, who you've seen on this channel a ton. He's my nephew, and he's one of the top-ranked players in Canada for his age, and he's a grade 9, which is technically grade 8 in the USA. He's a 2029. So, basically, let's get down and let's really check this out, because I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. It's very, very complicated. So, really quickly, why do you want to play in games? Well, there's really two main reasons why you would want to play in a game. Number one, you learn from the game. You get game experience. Now, obviously, if you're sitting on the bench, you're not getting anything. You're just watching. But if you are one of the lucky few who get to be on the court and actually play a good majority of the time, you're learning game skills. The game speed, because it's a different speed than practice, let's be honest. And, of course, you're going to be going up against defenders who may not know how you play, defenders who may know how you play, defenders who know your offense, who may not know your offense. You have a lot of problem solving happening in game that you usually, generally speaking, cannot learn from practice. While in practice, you're going over dedicated skills, maybe learning plays, and then, of course, if you are actually doing a training session, you're learning skills, and of course, potentially, if you have a partner, how to read a defender. So, these are all very important things to be able to learn. But the second reason why you would want to play in a game is exposure. If you are older, you want to have exposure. You need to show coaches at the next level, the university level, prep high school level, pro level, that you can play. It's not all about scoring. I've seen a lot of kids who go in and drop 35 to 40 points a game and never even touch a scholarship. Versus, I've made highlight tapes of players. People hire me to make highlight tapes. You can check it out down in the description below, and you can get the link, and you can contact me, and I can make one for you. But I have made highlight tapes for players who have averaged 1 point per game and over 20 rebounds per game, and they get a full D1 full ride scholarship in the States for NCAA. So, what does this tell you? This tells you that it's not all just about scoring. This is also about what you bring to the table. I'm going to give you a really good example right now, too, with the team that I help coach at the prep high school level. There's a lot of great offensive players. We don't need any more firepower. What we need is defenders. So, if a university or a pro team is in that same situation, and the coach is coming to your game, and they're like, wow, Bobby over there, number 6, he's doing fantastic defense. I bet he could lock up players at the D1 level. Guess what's going to happen? You may have scored 0 points. That coach needs you. He's going to offer you something potentially. So it's not just about scoring. But exposure is important. You need to be able to get to the exposure events. There is a ton of rep and AAU events that have 0 coaches because it's out of the time where they are allowed to recruit and scout players. Which means that if you are an elite player, why are you wasting your time in an event, in a tournament? If you are a top 30 or 40, 50 ranked player on ESPN, as a very good example, you generally are not wasting your time in an event that has no coaches in it. You could get injured. There's a lot of things that can happen in a game. That's why you see like VJ Edgecombe or even all these top D1 prospects only playing in a few events. Because they're picking and choosing what they go in. Because they want to be in front of those coaches. But meanwhile, if you are a lower level player, you may want to get into those non-exposure events so that you are able to get some game time to get that experience. So, what's better so far? Well, so far, it's sounding like games are more important. But let's really take a look at practices, because practices are also extremely important as well. Because in practice, you're going to be learning the skills needed to be able to play in that game. If you don't have the skills, you're not going to play, which means that you're stuck on the bench. You should always be training more and practicing more than the time that you have in game. So I'm going to give you a very good example. David played over 120 games over a 9-month span last season. He was across multiple teams, across multiple age groups. It was in his age group or a year older. Over 118 games that I recorded, and I missed, I think, a couple of games, which means that he had over 120 games in 9 months. That's crazy. It's insane. He was able to do that because he trained a lot. He trained every day. He was in practice every day. He trained every day, whether it was Saturday, Sunday, and let's say he didn't have games one Saturday, he would come with me to a U12 game and he would still get shots up. So he's still training. He's still getting a couple of things going on a rest day. So when it comes down to having a lot of games, this is what I would say. For every one of your games, you need to have at least 2 or even 3 practices. Whether that's 2 practices in a day, which equals maybe 2 or 3 hours, or if you're lucky enough, you can have, of course, 4 games on the weekend, and you can have 10 practices during the week. So, now that starts getting into an injury risk, which is something you need to really worry about. I see a lot of so-called high-ranked players that get stuck into these 5 or 6 teams where every weekend they're having 4, 6, 8 games, and then they're practicing every night after school. That becomes too much on your body. You need to have time off. Luckily, David never really had that many injuries. He had an injury where he was off for a few days, but that was it. And it was an injury that was unavoidable. It wasn't something that he tweaked or something from overwork. It was just something that happened in a game. And whenever you get hit in a game in a certain way, you need to sometimes take a few days off. So, luckily for him, he was not overworked in that sense. So, what I'm trying to say is, practices are really important. They're more important than games, but at the same time, you still need games so you can learn from them, so that you can go back to practice and training and then learn from it. Learn from your mistakes. Anyways, that's my opinion. Have 2 or 3 practices for every game. That's my opinion. Anyways, I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. Hit that like button and subscribe.